Welcome to Transformative Principal, where we interview real principals who are doing amazing things to help our students every single day. I'm your host, Jethro Jones. You can find me on Twitter at Jethro Jones.
Let's go ahead and get started. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your background, how you got to education, and how you became the superintendent of Canyon School District.
Well, I graduated from University of Wisconsin-Whitewater in 1982. It was really tough during that time because there was a recession.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a lot of social studies teachers out there and coaches. I found myself waiting in lines interviewing. I was very fortunate to land a job in a small K-12 unit district in northern Illinois, probably an hour and a half northwest of Chicago, called Johnsburg, and I began my teaching career as a sixth grade social studies, reading, math teacher, and I really enjoyed it. And I was also a high school varsity football wrestling coach, and I enjoyed that. It was just a great experience. But there was a change in administration in the middle school, probably about my third or fourth year there. And the principal came in and asked if I wanted to be the dean of students. And I absolutely said no way. And I never really had any interest in being a school administrator, to be honest with you. But he was pretty persistent, and I made the decision to try it. And from there, I moved to high school as an assistant principal for several years, and then I was recruited to be a principal in a high school that I just loved it. We had kids that were native from 30 different countries. It was just a great experience. You know, our test scores were real low, and it was a tough school, but I just really enjoyed that experience. As my daughter was getting older, I decided, since I was going to be at work 24 hours a day, if I wanted to watch her grow up, I'd need her to go to my school district. So I took a high school principal position in Brookfield, Wisconsin, in the Elmbrook School District. And it was probably one of the highest performing districts to this day I've ever seen. I've never seen another district that was that high performing. When I say that, we'd have schools like Harvard, Yale, Stanford show up with lists of kids to see. A small example is Canyons has 33,000 students, and there's about 3 national merit finalists a year. We had 1,400 kids in a high school, and there were usually 7 or 8, and 30 commended. My daughter was one of those people. And so she graduated from my high school. It was a great experience. I actually never thought I'd leave. I was a high school principal. It was a great experience up in Brookfield. But when she left, I was sort of recruited to go down to be a superintendent in the south side of Chicago in a one high school district with 1,800 students back in 2002. And we had the largest Arabic population in the area. I used to go meet with the imam, which is like the priests of the mosque, whenever we had problems with the Arabic gangs, and just clear up the problem right away. But it was a unique community, a south side community, 15 miles from the loop, and I loved it there. I loved the south side of Chicago. And from there, I ended up going to my previous school district, which was DeKalb, Illinois, where Northern Illinois University is. And DeKalb's a very unique community also because they have the second largest low-income housing in the state of Illinois. And when I arrived, this community actually passed a $110 million referendum to build an $80 million high school, a $14 million elementary school, and make major remodeling to many of the schools. So I inherited this situation where we spent the first 2 years planning to open a brand new high school and move schools around and renovate schools. Mm-hmm. It was really, really, really exciting and a great learning experience. But because we had the second largest low-income housing, a lot of the inner city blacks had moved out to the DeKalb area. We had a large minority population, 52% economic disadvantage. And I was really proud of what our teachers and our principals were able to do. We implemented RTI probably better than anyone, and I certainly am not going to take credit for that. There were a lot of people who were passionate about it that made that happen. But we really saw some progress in our our fall to winter benchmarks, our local benchmarks that we measured for reading and math. It really took off, and I felt we established a system in our district where we made significant strides in student achievement. The scores probably still aren't as high as Canyon School District, but what we did with our student population, I thought was amazing. I was also part of a community group that had built a new police station, rebuilt the downtown in DeKalb. They had built a new hospital, a new addition onto the local college. So DeKalb was just a wonderful experience. We did everything. We redistricted, you name it. We seemed to have been involved in doing that. I was really proud of the fact we weren't on the front page of the paper all the time. And we involved a lot of people. The school board was wonderful. They worked. They were very interested in involving the community, and they took a lot of input and put a lot of thought into what they were going to do before they made decisions. So it was a great experience. And in Illinois, it was no surprise. You probably read about Illinois. They have many financial. They have a financial crisis. Yeah. To be honest with you, they have the lowest bond rating out of any state in the country, and that's because of the politics in Springfield. And I love Illinois. I love the state. I love Chicago. But the pension reform was going to be the platform for making major changes in the budget. Mm-hmm. And with that said, I found myself in something that just shocked me, that I was qualified to retire. I had no intentions to retire, but I found myself in a situation that if I didn't, there were threats being made by the Springfield, our state legislature, that they're going to revamp everything. And if you don't, at this date and time, if you don't retire. So many people like me in Illinois submitted their retirements with really, I know a lot of my colleagues did the same as I did. They started looking outside the state because they weren't interested in retiring. I felt I had a lot of life left in me. The one thing I did do, though, this time, because I was able to retire, I decided, my wife and I talked about it, to find a place where there's a really good match, where I felt I was a good match for that school board and community, and vice versa. And so I did a lot of homework. I had a couple job opportunities. I turned down second interviews because I felt that that's not where I wanted to go. They were great communities. But when Canyon School District came about, I read the stakeholder survey. It was one of the things, I did a lot of research on Canyon School District before I even arrived in my first interview. And if you read the stakeholder survey, I remember walking in and meeting with my assistant superintendent in DeKalb and said, "Who does that sound like?" And she said, "Just like you." And I felt the same way. What this district was ready for at the time was somebody possibly like me. So I threw my name in the hat with no anticipation of getting an interview, really. It was 33,000 students. I'm from Illinois with 6,200. Right. Ironically, in Illinois, 6,200 is considered a large school system. There's 950 school systems in Illinois. Wow. So 33,000 in Utah, I'm thinking, I'm going to throw my name in anyway. And I was shocked when they called me and asked me to interview. I was happy, and I was interested. And when I flew in, I had never been to Salt Lake City. I thought it was just one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. It is. And I thought, well, if I think I'm going to retire, it'd be, at least if I'm going to work every day, even though I can retire, why not wake up and work every day in a place that's beautiful like this? So I did, and I interviewed, and it worked out. I did feel like it was a good match. That's yet to be seen, obviously. Right. In my field, superintendency is a title. Being a principal is a title. And you know as well as anyone that you have to earn the respect of the people you work for. And so only time will tell if I can earn that respect.
So what were some of the qualities that the stakeholder survey described that you felt like you possessed?
Well, number one was this time around, they were looking for someone that had a history in public education. Right. They specifically said they wanted someone that was a teacher, a dean, a principal, and so on. and that's something I've done my whole life. And so the other thing that stuck out to me is they wanted somebody. They made a point to say we want someone that'll be visible in all four corners of our school district.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the things most people would say about me in other districts is they saw me a lot, and then I was very accessible and highly visible. I just enjoy being out in the community, and I enjoy being in the schools, and that's where I'll be if it's possible. It's a large system. It'll take me a little time to get around, but I already have.
Right. You've been doing town hall meetings, and you met with the teachers this morning, right?
I did.
And so talk about how getting out and helping, or getting out and being seen, why is that so important to you?
Well, you learn. When you take a new job as a leader, whatever type of leadership role, the biggest mistake I think a leader can make is just arbitrarily making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
In a district this size, I think for me to absorb and better understand how people feel and what they consider are the pluses or the positive things happening and the issues and concerns they have, you develop a wider spectrum and a wider view perspective of the issues in the district and sort of a balance.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you do meet with your key leaders, you have this perspective that everyone else has, and you can discuss that with your other leaders before decisions are made. I think it's important to understand what teachers and principals and parents and students feel about their school system and what they're concerned about. And they want to be valued and have input. And I think you need to take a sincere approach to doing that.
So that's something that requires trust from people. How do you build that trust so that they know? Just time?
Time. No one will think I'm for real.
Mm-hmm.
Not based on some of the overall culture and the general feedback I'm getting. I've been through this before, and in only time will prove that I really am who I am. Mm-hmm. Saying it means nothing.
Right, absolutely. And it's great that you recognize that, I think, and it's also great to be able to have the patience to wait for that.
Right.
The question is, will the board and will other stakeholders have the patience to wait to be able to trust you?
Well, that's just part of the job. When you take a job and you sign on the dotted line, when you go to Alaska, it's going to take a while for them to believe you are who you are.
Right.
It's just the way it is. If you're consistent with your philosophy, your beliefs, and the way you treat people, chances are pretty good that overall most of the people you work with in a year from now will feel the same way they do when you talk to them now.
Right. That's great. I think that's such an important thing. One of the things that has happened in the past is that there have been some feelings of institutional bullying in our district, some bad press about people misbehaving. How do you plan to approach those delicate issues and help establish that trust?
First of all, what happened in the past, I won't address because I wasn't privy to any details, and I don't get involved in that kind of thing. If you're talking about the staff and principals and issues that have occurred, the culture I want to create in the district is one that's trusting, collaborative, consensus building. All I can say to that is that'll be what I attempt to do within the organization I work with, the leaders I work with the people I work with. My hope is that there will become a sense that there's more of this collaborative approach. I think the people who started this district did an absolutely amazing job. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I'm here is because of all the pioneers, the previous superintendents, the previous boards, teachers, the administrators. What they have accomplished here is just outstanding. So how I move forward now and look forward with what they built, I'll probably spend a lot of time trying to better understand how people feel about the organization. And I'm a culture person, and I want people to feel good about where they work. And the people who work with me in this central office will understand that and most likely either take on my approach or maybe look for a job somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I agree that that's what we need as a district, is to move forward in that collaborative mindset, and I feel like that's what we want to do also. So I think that's the right thing. In 5 years' time, what do you define as your successful superintendency?
Well, if you're a property owner in Canyon School District, the way I define success is that it's impossible to buy a home in Canyon School District because the school district's so good. The property value compared to all the surrounding school districts is about 20% higher.
And is that how it was in DeKalb?
Not necessarily, but,
Okay.
but we were hoping to get something like that. But yeah, the housing market in Illinois right now is not like it is out here.
So that's a fascinating perspective to me. A lot of people in education talk about they want to focus on test scores, how many students take AP tests, and how well they score on ACTs.
I just did though.
You did, right? And explain how that is connected and why you're saying your
The number one reason anybody like yourself with 4 kids moves into a community, the first thing you're going to ask, I believe, majority of parents, what are the schools like?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make your decision on the school and the culture of the community. And so what I just said encapsulates everything you just described. If my test scores are high, if people feel good about working there, if students are achieving at a high level, if kids are college and career ready, if things are happening and you're doing it the best, your property value will be higher than anybody around you. That's a good thing if I'm a property owner.
That's right.
Because I know I can sell my house in a minute because every family's waiting to get in.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So nobody that I've talked to yet, and I've done about 20 of these interviews, nobody has seen their job as making the property values in the area.
Well, I didn't say
go higher.
You asked. I didn't see my job as that. I see the
right.
outcome of my job as that.
Correct. That is correct. Thank you for clarifying.
I could spend hours talking about, having high test scores and pedagogy, collaboration. But at the end of the day, if you're doing it right, that's what will happen in any community.
Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this podcast. Please subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher, and please feel free to give us a rating on Stitcher Radio or on iTunes so that we can help spread the word about how much we're learning in this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter @JethroJones.